Hello and welcome. In 1978, a young New York actor by the name of Christopher Reeve won a movie role that would change forever his career and life. At the time, Chris had a few television and film credits and had co-starred opposite Katherine Hepburn in a Broadway play. Now he'd won the dual role of Clark Kent and Superman in the first of what would be a series of big-screen special effects movies to bring to life the comic strip hero who came as a baby from the planet Krypton. Superman was faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, and able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Quite a challenge even for an actor with the help of state-of-the-art special effects. To no one's surprise, Superman the movie was a smash worldwide hit, and Chris was a superstar. Shortly after he completed the second film in 1980, I went to New York to chat to him and find out how he was coping with the instant global fame and just how serious he was in his approach to bringing a superhero comic strip character to life.
Chris, do you take Superman seriously?
Yeah. No, you can't really, because it's important not to let Superman enter the real world. I take him dead seriously when I play him. I mean, I play it as though it's absolutely real, and I think that the qualities that Superman exhibits as a man, I mean, the kind of decency and compassion, integrity and sense of humor and those kind of things are absolutely real. The silly costume and the larger-than-life actions and the feats of strength, those are all meant to be amusing and heartwarming and friendly, but certainly not great art or poetry or anything of the kind. It's just good commercial filmmaking.
Which do you get the most enjoyment out of, playing Superman or playing Clark Kent?
Probably Clark Kent is more fun. But in this film, it was nice. I mean, I enjoyed them equally in this film, because the kind of going back and forth between the two identities was. I liked the whole aspect of Superman trying to release, trying to give himself away. I thought that was a nice angle.
The flying, of course, is one of the things that startles a lot of people when they see the film at first.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't any strings attached, or at least you don't see any strings attached.
No, there aren't.
Can you tell us how it's done at all?
No.
You can't divulge any part of the secret?
No. Who would want to know? It'd ruin your enjoyment of the film, you know?
Is it difficult? I mean,
yes,
it's physically a difficult thing to do. Why?
Well, I'd have to explain how it's done to say where it hurts. You know. Sorry.
It has been explained by some people. I mean, it's not a complete
If other
secret.
people want to go and get their kicks by talking about how magic is performed, then, you know, there's always a party pooper someplace. But I'm not going to endorse what they're saying. Yeah.
What about some of the sequences in Superman 2 I found quite enjoyable, and one I was talking to you about before, and that's the honeymoon suite, which I think is fairly important to the three central characters, Clark, Superman and Lois. Rather than me tell it, can you explain a little bit about what the scene is and how it is important, for instance, to Clark?
Well, I don't think we should give that scene away, but basically, there's one thing that I threw in there in terms of playing Clark that I thought would be kind of fun, a side of Clark that the audience has never seen, which is that he's saving up to make a big move on Lois. You know, he's really going to be real cool and kind of sock it to her any day now. And I like, you know, the kind of, like, he's sort of like a tiger coiled up and ready to spring, you know. And because Lois has been giving him all this coaching, that Clark, you've really got to be more aggressive and go with what you got, and, you know, when you see something, go for it and all that. And he's going, yeah, you know. And so now they're alone, and I think he's about to make his move. And I think it's kind of nice to see Clark being really ballsy, you know, or his version of the same.
On the other hand, this is kind of nice, Lois. Complimentary champagne.
Kissing contest tonight.
Really? Lois would... no. Hey, look at this. Lois? Gee. Look what I found. Complimentary corsage.
Yeah, everything's complimentary around here till you get the bill.
Yeah. Gee, you look very pretty.
Thank you, Clark.
Sure. You know, Lois, I was sort of thinking, well, later on, well, I was just wondering what you wanted to do about the arrangements.
What arrangements, Clark?
Well, I was thinking primarily about the sleeping arrangements.
I guess with all the notoriety and the fame and publicity with the Superman movie, it's had quite a difference on your private life. And of course now you've got a little boy, Matthew, aged 11 months. How has it affected you?
No, I mean, I'm certainly not John Travolta. I don't get mugged in the streets. I quite happily take the subway. I, walk sometimes to the theater. I don't, nobody bothers me in the local A&P. In fact, I don't hardly ever get recognized unless I stand in one place for a long time. I don't really get recognized.
And I guess you don't stand in one place for a long time.
No, I mean, why bother, right? But I don't know what it means to really be an international star. It's not like a before and after picture. One day you're ugly with pimples, and the next day, you're beautiful. And because it's always it's always a bumpy ride. It's always a kind of a roller coaster effect. Somewhere in time, this picture that I did after the great success of Superman was not very well received critically over here, so that kind of is disappointing. And it's not as though it's all just a big clear path into the great blue yonder. It's always part of your life. There's not a dividing line in before and after, if you know what I mean.
Do you have to work to keep your private life private? I mean,
yes, that I do, because the magazines are really interested in filling it up with gossip and speculation, and they also like to dig into the home life for some reason. In the old days, well, I don't know. I don't want to generalize, but they do seem fascinated by the happy couple at home and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say that again. The Australian papers have picked up things about gay and are you getting married? Aren't you getting married? Does it matter? Who cares?
Exactly. Who cares is the answer to that question.
I mean, is it still the same kind of thing over here? Because now you've got Matthew who's what,
no.
10 or 11 months?
Nobody bothers, but that's because we don't allow pictures to be taken to film. I think that once you start using your son to get publicity, I think that's a cheap shot. I really do.
Has there been attempts to use Matthew in publicity?
Oh, all the time. People magazine is just desperate. I mean, all the magazines are over here.
As a front cover or just a feature story?
Front cover.
How do you cope with that? How do you...
You say no.
Do you say no politely, or do you...
Very politely. I try, because they're only doing their job. I don't mind anybody doing their job as long as they're not bullish about it. They're doing their job, and they think it'd be interesting. I mean, the idea of a couple having two careers going in the city. I mean, Gay runs the top model agency in the country. Or helps to run it. It's a very big deal. They handle some of the biggest names in the modeling world, which is very glamorous, very exciting, and a lot of millions of dollars are involved. And I'm up-and-coming actor, and what have we created? Who is that little person that these two people have created? That's fascinating. They're also fascinated with what they can't have. If you turn around and say, I really don't want to expose my private life, thank you very much, they go, well, why not? And they're not used to... But I don't say no to slap them in the face, but merely because I don't feel it's legitimate publicity. For me to sit here and tell you about Superman or 5th of July or whatever, that's legitimate because it involves professional things. But I think to sell your family on the air is a little strange.
Do you get intruded upon in other ways at all?
What, people ringing the doorbell and things? Or?
People trying to...
No, never. They don't even know where I live.
Part of your life, for instance. Trying to share in the success of...
No, just a lot of mail. A lot of mail.
What do you do with it?
Answer it.
You actually answer it yourself?
Yeah, well, Gay and I do it. Gay also functions as social secretary, social director, and Gal Friday, which is wonderful. We just tackle it. In fact, that's what we were doing today before you showed up. It's just sorting through the mail.
Does Gay ever become involved in... I mean, do you allow her to be part of the publicity, or is it an agreement between you?
We get photographed at openings and things. We always, are seen together and get photographed and stuff, and they'll ask her from time to time for comments and things like that. But no one has yet done a real sort of profile of Gay because she's not interested in PR, which is very refreshing.
What about things like, for instance, the talk of marriage?
No, we don't. That's our private life. We don't talk about it.
But, I mean, for her it must be difficult if, on one hand, the gossip magazines and the newspapers would keep bringing it up.
No, they don't, because they got the message a long time ago that we do not talk about the way we live, or we talk about things in general terms. Yes, we live in New York. Yes, we live in the West Side. But we don't talk about the philosophy behind our life for public consumption.
A couple of quick questions about the movie. In Superman 2, if you can cast your mind back to it, what are some of the scenes that you think you enjoyed and you think probably are the most eye-catching or memorable?
Boy, eye-catching and memorable. Well, if your eye is not caught by what happens at the Eiffel Tower, you're blind. I think the wind sequence will end up being a classic. special effects making as a uniform blend of model work and stunt work and special effects filmmaking, I think. And conceptually, I think it's something you haven't ever seen before on the screen.
Were you there when they were making it?
Bits and pieces, yeah. I mean, I was there for 6 weeks, but just doing my part of it. But don't forget, there's 5 units, there's 400 people, there's extras, there's an entire back set. We rebuilt most of New York on the back lot. We rebuilt, the set was a mile long, you know, with buildings vast, you know, I don't know how many square acres it was. It was just enormous. Enough that we could have 65 cars driving around, you know. That's a pretty big set.
So none of it was actually shot here in New York at all?
No, just exterior, you know, panning shots, stock shots.
The Australian public, of course, knows you only for Superman.
That's fine.
But 80 or 90% of your work, maybe more even, has been in the theatre. You started off at... How old were you when you got the first break?
Well, the first break... actually, my very, very first break ever, I was 8, and I played the second guard of the castle in Cinderella. I didn't even come close to being the handsome prince. But then the next year I started through singing. I had a decent voice as a soprano when I was a kid. And I did all the Gilbert and Sullivan things, and I played in, then I played in all the kids' parts in plays like Our Town and The Diary of Anne Frank, and, you know, worked my way through school. I was let out of science classes and stuff to go do the matinees as long as I'd make up the homework. And most of the time, you find ways to, you know, kind of cheat a little bit, you know, certain book reports that you can fudge and things like that.
And I guess you were the envy of the class, were you? Well, you went out to do theatre.
At first, but everybody had their own kind of thing. There was one girl who was training for the U.S. Olympics team in equestrian, you know, in riding. Somebody else became so brilliant that just skipped school altogether and went into a special little section for geniuses. You know, it was a school where individual desire to excel was encouraged. And I find that growing up in that atmosphere in Princeton, New Jersey, which is a very academically and intellectually and creatively alive kind of town, I think that had a great deal to do with my finding the theater. Had I grown up in East Elbow or something, I would have been God knows what.
And at 21, you landed a role opposite Katherine Hepburn.
Right.
Was that sort of the beginning of the rise, or had you already done a lot of...
It was not the beginning of the rise. I had a considerable amount of experience by then, but after that play, nothing happened for a while. I mean, just because I was with her on Broadway didn't really matter that much. In fact, I went to Hollywood and I was trying to get work in films, and I didn't get anything except for really second-rate TV pilots. There was one television pilot about a wolf, you know, a guy called Lucan. He's half wolf, and another one, a pilot about a guy based on Logan's Run, which I would play the Michael York part. And I just couldn't get off on any of that stuff, you know. There was another series, I don't know if you had it down in Australia, called The Man from Atlantis.
Yes.
In which they wanted me to play this guy who's half, where is he? He comes from the lost, you know, he's got green contact lenses and he can sit underwater for hours. And I thought, this is really absurd. I don't want any of this comic book kind of stuff. This is larger. 2 months later, I'm off to London to do Superman. But I don't know. Maybe I had the sense that, innately, the sense that something better was on the way.
Because you did do some TV, which I guess was made in Los Angeles.
No, New York.
It was New York,
yeah. The Love of Life. I was on a daytime television. Do you have those things down in Australia?
Yes, we do.
They're like
yeah.
Crossroads or
That's right.
what are they called down there?
Oh, we've got most of the American ones, I think.
Oh, you don't?
Oh, yes.
You have Ryan's Hope and Search for Tomorrow and all that
Search for
stuff?
Tomorrow.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But you were doing that at the same time that you were doing the play with Katherine Hepburn.
Yeah.
Now, that seems to be a big workload.
Yeah, it was. It led to a collapse from nervous exhaustion on stage one night. Well, I was commuting in from Toronto and from Washington and all over the place 3 times a week. And second night in New Haven, fortunately we'd opened and gotten good notices and stuff. Second night I came out, I'd been in New York all day shooting, came back to New Haven, grabbed a hamburger, went on stage, came out, said my opening line, and collapsed right in the sofa. And Katherine Hepburn just brought the curtain down and brought on the understudy, and I was ordered to go spend 24 hours in bed and have steak and hot fudge sundaes. And
what a tough life.
Okay, I'll do it, because that's the answer to life. Fresh air, according to Katherine Hepburn, fresh air, steak, and hot fudge sundaes. That's all you need.
And that's probably
that's
what
probably
led you
true.
to Superman. Yeah. But you have a record of pushing yourself pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I think it's more interesting than sitting around watching the grass grow under your feet. I really do.
But for you, I mean, obviously it's paid off. You had to wait a number of years if you started professionally at 14. How do you approach, planning, for instance, what you're going to do? You
don't. You don't plan at all. You just let it happen. And also, I think it's important not to rush too fast. I mean, I don't mind at all that I've been in the business 10 years before I really got this big break, which was Superman. Because you need those 10 years to work up some ability. I mean, the big danger today is everybody wants to hit it rich. It is a business, particularly in the States, where you can just clean up overnight. You can become the new girl on Charlie's Angels or something and make $1 million. And everybody seems to make that the incentive rather than doing decent work. So let's say you're some model that gets a job on Charlie's Angels. Well, you'll last 1 season, 2 seasons, whatever. If you can't act, and if you don't, have some commercial endorsements or something tied up, you're going to be finished in a couple of years. Whereas a good actor is never out of work. It may take some setbacks, but a good actor will always. So that's why you look at Katherine Hepburn, Henry Fonda, Charlton Heston, Jimmy Stewart. These people lasted 30, 40, 50 years, each of them, because they trained a long time before they took on the big stuff.
You had very much the role of developing the characters, apart from what was on the script. I mean, that you weren't directed wholly by both Richard
No,
Donner
I was
and
never
Richard
told
Lester.
what to do. It was never, look, make it like this. I was encouraged to improvise, which was very important. Particularly in the first picture, what started this whole thing really rolling was that terrace scene with Lois. That was all improvised. But I was encouraged to develop the character, and the directors, both Donner and Lester, performed the function of telling me when I was going off the tracks, or giving me high marks when I was doing well and low marks when I wasn't. So it was they were being the third eye rather than trying to drag it out of me, which is, I think, a nice relationship to have with the director.
Good evening, Miss Lane.
Hi.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have plans this evening?
Oh, this is the whole thing. No.
Well, listen, it's no trouble at all for you to come back later.
Don't move. Sure you can move. Just don't fly away, all right?
Sorry to drop in on you like this, Miss Lane, but I've been thinking, there must be a lot of questions about me that people in the world would like to know the answers.
Of course, yes.
You really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane.
Don't tell me lung cancer, right?
Well, not yet, thank goodness.
Would you like a glass of wine?
No thanks. I never drink when I fly. Nice place.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Should we get started with the interview? Oh.
The scene on the deck, balcony, whatever, was that scripted at all?
There was a 2-page scene that had no flesh to it, really. It was the question about how fast do you fly and where do you come from and what's your background. It was all very dry. And we put in all the stuff about, Margot and I put in all the stuff about the underwear and the seeing through lead. I have a little problem seeing through lead. I love it. That never got a laugh, but, I probably didn't play it right. But I just think it's so sweet that most people talk about, I'm a manic depressive and my mother-in-law is a real drag and my kid ran away from home. Most people are talking about, and he's saying, well, I have a problem seeing through lead. I just would have thought that, oh, really? That must be very distressing. I just thought that was kind of nice. So
it was certainly the most delightful scene in Superman.
Well, I enjoyed that scene a lot. Would you care for a glass of wine? No, I never drink when I fly. Nice place. It's really, you gotta, say the line and then move on to the next one before they have a chance to. It's got to be throwaway humor.
Chris, one of the shocks of Superman 2 is that Marlon Brando doesn't appear in the film at all. What happened?
The experience showed that the audience is really more interested in Superman and Lois and the villains. And the filmmakers found they could save themselves a lot of bread because Marlon Brando is very expensive. We had shot all his material for Part 2 in 1977, but it wasn't really organic. It wasn't really essential to the story, so they just cut it out.
You will travel far, my little Cologne. But we will never leave you, even in the face of our death. The richness of our lives shall be yours. All that I have, all that I've learned, everything I feel, all this and more, I bequeath you, my son.
What was he like? There are a lot of stories that go both ways, that say he's a great guy who's sort of anchored by the aura around him, that makes it difficult for him to mix with people. Others that say exactly the opposite. What is he like?
When he came over to shoot Superman, he was doing his impression of a country squire. You know, he was being terribly, terribly British. I mean, very, you know, sort of sending flowers and champagne and notes to the young members of the company about, you know, sitting in his trailer and always being right on time and, you know, taking exactly an hour for lunch and being very kind to everybody on the set. I think he was sending us up a little bit.
What about Superman 3?
Most important thing is it a good idea, you know, and where are you going to go after you've flown and loved and turned the world backwards? What do you do for an encore? I, on principle, have nothing against it, but it better be a damn legitimate movie and not just a way to make everybody rich. If someone comes up with a brilliant idea of what to do with a Part 3, I'd love to hear it.
Do you, in fact, get a share of the profits of the film?
No.
None at all?
No.
So you're paid on a straight salary?
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like to have a 1% of...
Well, a profit of the actual film, I think, is fair, because that's a percentage of my own work, whereas the T-shirts and the bed sheets have nothing to do with me. So for Superman 3, since there is no Marlon Brando, I'm the solo star kind of thing. I think a percentage of the profits of the movie would be in order.
By the way, the interview took place in Chris's new duplex apartment just off Central Park in New York. When I turned up with cameraman David Efferton, Chris opened the door in an old shirt, jeans turned halfway up his legs, a growing beard and a half-full glass of wine. The PR lady had forgotten to ring and remind him of the interview. But, true professional that he was, Chris said, "Hang on a few minutes while I have a shower," and soon reappeared for our chat. I interviewed him twice more at the Cannes Film Festival for the Bostonians and then switching channels. Like most people, I was saddened to hear of his accident, but shattered when I heard that he had died. Chris was a truly unforgettable human being, and I was honoured to have spent time with him.